Hi everyone, religious fanboy here again, and this is what we can learn from video because I'm just not quite sure how to frame this. Just wanting to talk about it because it was listen. Yesterday I played the game Beginner's Guide, and it reminded me of a lot of interesting things and gave me a lot of things to think about, like and dealing with the desire to be helpful and overcoming that. And we see that through kind of the narrator, the person that is guiding us through the games. Um, um, and we see how as we see the sin and understood to be anger behind the later games that and like a spoiler for the game, like which makes the game actually pretty uncomfortable to play because you see the relationship of these two people kind of deteriorating, and like it kind of seems like you're in the middle of a fight between two people, like you're a third party observer. um and it's interesting because you get the idea in the game that the original creator of these games might just be making these games for the pure joy of making things. That could be inferred from how it seems like he doesn't want his the games that he's made to be shown to people. Like that is one of the things that the creator in one of the last levels of the game is condemning and expressing anger about, and how he's been taking his games and like the narrator's been taking the games and redesigning them and taking away their original purpose and intent. Um, like a twist in the game is finding out that it's this narrator, um, that was the one putting in the light poles, and like he changed an ending to one of the earlier games. Um, and how the interviewer, like it's interesting seeing and has been relatable in seeing how the game the narrator has a strong desire to be helpful and be complimented. I found those relatable. Um, I've worked hard to overcome both of those. Those still both affect me, but I found those very relatable. So I was able to understand the narrator on a psychological and spiritual aspect, but I also found it really interesting how much I understood from the artist's point of view. There's a specific thing where we are seeing you experience a bunch of games that were created about um uh, based around prisons, and the narrator just assumed this was a must have been out of a deep psychological desire to leave there for the game creator to leave his own head and no longer be isolated with his own thoughts, and that's why he felt like, oh, showing people these games would help him. um but as an artist, I also understand, like, we can get hooked on and just find certain color pairings or design elements fascinating and just stick with them because it's like, oh, we like it and we enjoy using it. So we return to the idea a lot. I I have a shape that if you were to see a lot of my abstract work, you'd notice that it is used common and used heavily throughout a lot of my paintings. I don't think there's psychological thing, or at least it's not out of any deep mental experience that I choose to use that shape as much as I do or like it as much as I do. It's just I just like the overall design element of it and use it, and that could be the creator of the game's reason for prisons. And um it reminds me of a conversation that me and some art friends had, where um common thing in art history is a dog being a symbol for fertility, but we were also talking about the idea of, like, when is it, for the sake of the example, when is dog just a dog, and the artist just put a dog in there because they like painting dogs. And the interpretation of art is affects multiple people and everyone's going to view it differently. And as we see in the beginner's guide, that needs to be understood and is something that forced upon shouldn't be something that is forced for everyone to believe and view something that way, but should and needs to be discussed face to face rather than assumed and proclaimed without having a serious discussion among in regards to art and life without consulting all parties involved. This is also why, as Christians, we need to study scripture and learn how to interpret it ourselves, as well as interact with and communicate with with modern interpretations, the town be able to consult those, as well as the commentaries of earlier generations, such as the Talmuds, from an educational standpoint of understanding the context and meaning of the Old Testament to the original audience, as well as studying the interpretations of the old church fathers. And yeah, and we see through the game, the beginner's guide, the what happens when there is a lack of communication. In the case of the beginner's guide, it is the destruction of the relationship that could have been a good and healthy relationship, but because of the lack of communication and betrayal of trust, there the narrator had destroyed any potential of that deep, meaningful relationship because of the negative and abusive assumptions and actions and their effects it had on the person that created those games. And with that being said, may God be with you and see you next time. Bye.